My name is Lorelei. I'm 34 years old, and I'm from Denver, Colorado. Here's the thing you need to understand about me and Arthur. I always thought we worked. We were a classic case of opposites attract. He's 37, quiet, and so laid back he's practically horizontal. He doesn't let things get to him, which has always been a good balance for me, because I can be, well, let's call it intense. I'm the one who makes the plans, pays the bills on time, and decides where we're going for dinner. He's the one who's just happy to be along for the ride. And for the most part, it was a good ride. That night, we were at his friend Grant's house for a party. Arthur doesn't have a huge circle of friends, so when he actually wants to go out and socialize with them, I make an effort. It's important to him, so it's important to me. I figured it would be the usual routine. We'd show up, have a couple of beers, make small talk, and be home by midnight. It started off just like that. The house was buzzing, a comfortable mix of familiar faces and a few new ones. It was Grant's crowd, people Arthur had known since college, so the vibe was easy and relaxed. I didn't know everyone, but that's never bothered me. I'm good at finding my place in a room. And if I'm being completely honest, I kind of enjoy being the center of attention when I'm in the mood for it. So while Arthur was off catching up with Grant, probably talking about sports or whatever it is they talk about, I mingled. I have a knack for it. I can find a group, listen for a minute, and slide right in with a comment that gets a laugh. A couple of hours flew by, and a group of us ended up in a loose circle in the living room, drinks in hand, just talking about everything and nothing. It was fun, easy. Then, someone brought up relationships. Okay, but, honestly, a woman I didn't know said, swirling the wine in her glass, "How much do you trust your partner? Like, if things really went south? A break-in? A confrontation on the street? Do you know for a fact that they'd have your back?" It was all hypothetical, of course. Just late-night party talk. But the question made me smirk. I couldn't help it. I glanced over at Arthur, who was sitting next to me on the arm of the couch, quiet as usual. And before the logical part of my brain could stop me, the words just tumbled out. "Oh, that's an easy one for me," I said, my voice carrying across the circle. "I know for a fact Arthur wouldn't be able to protect me. I mean, look at him." It got a laugh. A big one. That little spark ignited inside me, the one you get when you land a perfect punchline. So, I kept going. I felt the spotlight swing my way, and I basked in it. "Seriously," I continued, leaning in conspiratorially, "the man doesn't work out. He strained his back last month trying to open a new jar of pickles. I had to do it for him." More laughter, even louder this time. I looked at Arthur, expecting him to be laughing along, to play the part of the good-natured husband. He was smiling, but it was a tight, weird kind of smile. The kind you put on when you don't want to make a scene. But everyone else was eating it up. So, of course, instead of stopping, I doubled down. "If someone tried to mug us," I said, gesturing between the two of us, "we'd just have to hand everything over, because Arthur would probably freeze up, and then we'd both be victims." The circle was roaring now. Even Grant, his best friend, chimed in with a joke. "Hey, you can't blame him, Lorelei. He always skips leg day." It turned into a whole bit. A roast of Arthur, led by his own wife. He didn't say a single word. He just sat there, that strange half-smile plastered on his face, his eyes fixed on the floor. I could feel a subtle shift in his posture, a tension that wasn't there before. But the laughter was too loud, and the attention felt too good. So I went for the grand finale. I pointed at his arms. I'm not kidding, though. He's got the arms of a 7th grader. No offense, honey. People lost it. They were wiping tears from their eyes. I mean, it was funny, right? It's not like I was saying anything that wasn't technically true. We tease each other. That's what couples do. But then, out of nowhere, he stood up. Just like that. He unfolded himself from the arm of the couch, didn't look at anyone, and walked out of the room. A moment later, I saw him reappear in the hallway, grabbing his jacket from the coat rack. No explanation. Nothing. At first, I thought he was just stepping outside for some air, or maybe going to the bathroom, but when a minute turned into 5, and he didn't come back, a cold realization started to creep in. He was gone. Like, gone. The mood in the room curdled instantly. The laughter died, replaced by a thick, awkward silence. Everyone was looking at me. Grant finally broke the quiet. "You okay, Lorelei?" That was kind of harsh. His words threw me. Harsh? It was a joke. We have a teasing relationship. It's not like I revealed some deep, dark secret. Still, I tried to play it off. I shrugged, forcing a casual smile. "Oh, he's probably just tired. He gets like that sometimes. He's fine." But inside, a hot spike of annoyance was rising in my chest. What was his problem? It's not like I was lying. And it's not like anyone there was going to think less of him. If anything, I thought I was making him look good, you know? For being the kind of guy who could take a joke and laugh at himself. I stayed at the party for another half hour, but it wasn't the same. The vibe was completely off. People were polite, but distant. The conversation was stilted. I felt this bizarre mix of irritation and embarrassment. Finally, I said my goodbyes and called an Uber. As I stood on the porch waiting for the car, the cool night air felt heavy. I wasn't thinking about what I'd said. I was thinking about how he'd left me there, how he'd overreacted and ruined the whole night. When I got home, the house was dark except for the light in our bedroom. He was already in bed, his back to my side, pretending to be asleep. I didn't say anything. I just got ready for bed in silence. I figured he'd get over it by morning. He always did. I was wrong. He didn't get over it by morning. When I woke up, his side of the bed was empty. That wasn't unusual. He always got up earlier than me for work. But usually, I'd wake up to the smell of coffee brewing. This morning, there was nothing. Just silence. I found him in the kitchen, dressed for work, staring into a mug of coffee like it held the answers to the universe. "Morning," I said, my voice deliberately cheerful as I went to the coffee maker. It was empty. He'd made a cup just for himself. He didn't look up. He just grunted something that could have been morning. Now, I poured myself a glass of water instead, leaning against the counter. The silence was thick. It was an active silence, not a peaceful one. It was the kind of silence that screams. "So," I began, trying to keep my tone light. "You disappeared last night." He took a slow sip of his coffee. "I went home. I noticed. You could have said something. I had to get an Uber." He finally looked at me then, and his eyes were cold. Not angry, not sad, just empty. It was a look I'd never seen from him before. "You humiliated me, Lorelei." His voice was flat, devoid of emotion, which was somehow worse than if he had yelled. The accusation caught me completely off guard. Humiliated? That was such a dramatic word. "Arthur, come on," I said, rolling my eyes. "It was a joke. Our friends were laughing. I was laughing. It wasn't that serious." "It was serious to me," he said, his voice still level. "You made me feel like a fool in front of my friends. My oldest friends." "Oh, don't be so sensitive," I shot back, the irritation from the night before returning full force. "It's not my fault you can't take a little teasing." He didn't respond. He just looked at me for a long moment, and in that look, I felt like he was seeing something in me he'd never seen before. Or maybe he was finally acknowledging something he'd been ignoring for years. Then he stood up, rinsed his mug in the sink, and walked out of the kitchen. He didn't say goodbye. A minute later, I heard the front door close. And that's when I knew. This was different. He wasn't going to just let this go. The day dragged on. I tried to focus on work, but my mind kept replaying the conversation. Humiliated. The word echoed in my head. I didn't see it that way. I saw it as me being funny, being the life of the party. He was supposed to be the quiet, stable one who appreciated my spark. That was our dynamic. But the more I thought about it, the more I started focusing on his actions. He walked out on me. He left his wife at a party, alone, to find her own way home. Then he gave me the silent treatment and accused me of humiliating him. Who was the real bad guy here? When he got home from work that evening, the wall of silence was still there. It was higher, thicker. He moved around the house like a ghost, avoiding eye contact, giving one-word answers to my questions. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. "Okay, are we seriously doing this?" I asked, following him into the living room. He was standing by the window, looking out at the darkening street. He turned to face me, his arms crossed. "Doing what?" "This? This silent treatment thing. It's childish, Arthur. If you're mad, just say you're mad. Let's have it out and get it over with." "I'm not giving you the silent treatment," he said, his voice still eerily calm. "I just don't have anything to say to you right now." "Because I made a joke?" I said, my voice rising with frustration. "A joke you're blowing way out of proportion?" "Is that what you think this is about?" he asked. "One joke?" "Well, yeah. What else would it be about?" He shook his head slowly, a sad, tired expression on his face. "You really don't get it, do you?" "No, I guess I don't. So why don't you explain it to me?" "You don't respect me," he said. The words were quiet, but they landed like a physical blow. I actually laughed. A short, sharp, disbelieving sound. "That is the most ridiculous thing I have ever heard. Of course I respect you. You're my husband." "No," he said, shaking his head again. "You don't. Last night wasn't a one-time thing, Lorelei. It was just the first time you did it in front of everyone I care about. You dismiss my opinions. You make decisions for both of us without even asking me. You talk down to me like I'm a child who can't handle his own life. You think it's teasing, but it's not. It's contempt." I stared at him, my mouth open. Contempt? Where was all of this coming from? "Okay, but you left me there," I countered, seizing on the one thing I knew was my solid ground. "You're mad about a joke, but you thought it was okay to just abandon your wife at your friend's house? How is that respectful? How is that okay?" He hesitated for a second, and I saw a flicker of something in his eyes. Doubt, maybe. "I needed to get out of there," he said, his voice losing some of its firmness. "Do you have any idea how it felt? To sit there while my own wife made me the butt of every joke? Everyone was laughing, Arthur. It was light-hearted. I won. It wasn't light-hearted for me," he finally snapped, his voice cracking with an emotion he'd been suppressing all day. "It hurt. And when you saw that it was hurting me, you just kept going. You did it more. That's not respect, Lorelei. I don't know what it is, but it's not love, and it's not respect." The conversation ended there. He walked out of the room, and this time he went into the spare bedroom and closed the door. I stood alone in the living room, the silence returning, heavier than ever. For the first time, a tiny sliver of doubt pierced my armor of indignation. Contempt. Was that what he saw? Was that what everyone at the party saw? I pushed the thought away. No. He was just hurt. He was being sensitive. He would come around. He had to. That was how we worked. A few nights later, Arthur came home from work and announced he was going out. "I'm having dinner with Grant and the guys," he said, his tone matter-of-fact as he pulled a clean shirt from his closet. It wasn't a request. It wasn't even really an announcement. It was just a statement of fact. I raised an eyebrow. "Oh. Okay. When will you be back?" "Not sure," he said, shrugging. "Don't wait up." And that was it. He left. I sat on the couch, the TV remote idle in my hand. I knew exactly what that dinner was about. It was a crisis meeting. Let's talk about what Lorelei did summit. I could picture it perfectly, Grant and the others, all sitting around a table, patting Arthur on the back, telling him he deserved better, feeding him nonsense about how awful I was. Guys like Grant, they always act like they're above the drama, but they live for this stuff. Still, I told myself it was fine. Let him go. Let him vent to his friends. He'd get it out of his system. They'd tell him not to throw away his marriage over one stupid night, and he'd come home and things would finally go back to normal. But when he came back that night, something was different. It wasn't anything dramatic. He didn't storm in, full of accusations. It was more subtle than that. He was quiet, but it was a different kind of quiet. It wasn't the angry, wounded silence from before. It was thoughtful, pensive, like he was a million miles away, lost in his own head. "How was dinner?" I asked, trying to sound casual. He shrugged, setting his keys on the counter. "It was fine." "Just fine?" I teased, trying to lighten the mood. "Did Grant overcook the steaks again?" He gave me a small, almost forced smile. "No, the food was good. Just had a lot on my mind." That was it. That was all I got. Normally, he'd tell me everything. He'd recount the conversations, who said what funny thing, what inside jokes were brought up. But not this time. This time, he just brushed it off and went to bed early, leaving me sitting in the living room, feeling a strange and unfamiliar sense of unease. It was like I was living with a stranger. Over the next few days, I started noticing more changes. Little things, at first. When I suggested we watch a new movie I'd been wanting to see, he just said, "You can pick. I'll watch whatever." But his tone wasn't indifferent like it used to be. It was detached, annoyed almost. When I brought up our usual weekend plans, brunch on Saturday, errands on Sunday, he casually mentioned he might go hiking with Grant instead. Arthur wasn't a hiker. He wasn't an outdoorsy guy at all. That was my thing. It wasn't just his actions either. It was his whole demeanor. He seemed more centered, more confident, maybe? I don't know how else to describe it. It was like he wasn't waiting for my approval before doing things anymore. Like my opinion was suddenly secondary. I wasn't used to it, and I didn't like it. Not because I wanted to control him, or, okay, maybe a little, but mostly because it felt like he was pulling away from me, building a wall brick by brick, and I was on the outside with no idea how to get back in. He was shutting me out, and I didn't know why. One night, I couldn't stand it anymore. "You've been acting different lately," I said while we were getting ready for bed. We were in our separate routines, a cold distance between us and the small space of the bathroom. He looked at me in the mirror. For a second, I thought he was going to deny it, to pretend he didn't know what I was talking about. But then he said, "I've just been thinking, a lot, about us, about me, about what I want." That threw me. "What you want?" I repeated, trying to keep my voice calm. "What's that supposed to mean?" He shrugged, turning away from the mirror to face me. "Just that. I've been letting things slide for too long. I've been too passive, too whatever. I need to start standing up for myself more. That's all." I let out a nervous laugh, trying to play it off. But inside, I felt a sharp pang of dread. "You make it sound like I've been running some kind of dictatorship," I said. "Is this still about the party? Because I thought we were past that." "No. It's not just the party," he said, and his eyes locked onto mine. They were clear and steady. "It's everything." And just like that, the ground shifted beneath my feet. This wasn't about one night or one joke anymore. This was about our entire relationship, our entire marriage. And for the first time, I realized he might not be okay with how things were. For the first time, I started to wonder if I was losing control. A week later, Arthur came home from work, and I knew immediately that something was wrong. He had that serious look on his face, the one he gets when he's about to say something he's been rehearsing in his head for hours. I braced myself, but I didn't push it. If it was important, he'd tell me. That's how it usually went. We ate dinner in near total silence. The only sounds were the clinking of our forks against the plates. The tension was so thick I felt like I was choking on it. Just as I was clearing the plates, he finally spoke. "We need to talk." I sighed, my patience already worn thin. I set the plates down with a little more force than necessary. "Okay, what now, Arthur?" He didn't even flinch at my tone, which was unusual. Normally, that would have been enough to make him back down. Instead, he leaned back in his chair, his arms crossed over his chest. He looked like a man preparing for battle. Why do you treat me the way you do? The question caught me completely off guard. What are you even talking about? The way you talk to me? He clarified, his voice steady. The way you act like you're the only one whose opinion matters in this relationship. Do you even respect me, Lorelai? Honestly, I rolled my eyes. We were back to this again. Of course I respect you, Arthur. You're my husband. Why do you keep asking me that? He shook his head, a look of deep frustration crossing his face. Because you don't act like it. You humiliated me in front of my friends, and when I tried to tell you how I felt, you turned it around and made it about how I overreacted. You don't listen to me. You don't care what I want. And half the time, it feels like I'm just here to be your punching bag. That's not fair, I shot back, my own anger flaring up. I wasn't trying to humiliate you. I told you, it was a joke. You're the one who turned it into this huge dramatic thing. This isn't just about the party, Lorelai, he said, his voice sharper now. This is about everything. The way you talk to me, the way you dismiss me when I try to tell you how I feel. If you really respected me, you wouldn't treat me like this. My face felt hot. Don't you dare act like you're some perfect angel in all of this. You don't stand up for yourself. You let me handle everything. You let me make all the decisions. And now you want to sit here and act like I'm the bad guy? Maybe if you stepped up more, I wouldn't have to take charge all the time. It felt good to say it. It felt true. That's not an answer, he said, cutting me off. His voice was dangerously quiet again. That's an excuse. Why did you even marry me, Lorelai? If you don't respect me, was it just convenience? Because I was the safe choice? Or was there something else? Because right now, I'm starting to think I'm not the person you actually wanted to be with. I froze. The words hit me like a physical slap. That's ridiculous, I said quickly, my voice shaking slightly. You're twisting this into something it's not. Am I? He challenged, his voice rising now, the dam of his composure finally breaking. Because the way you treat me doesn't feel like love, Lorelai. It feels like I'm just here, like I'm not enough for you. And maybe I never was. That's not true, I snapped, but even as I said it, I could feel the cracks forming in my defense. He was pushing at something deep and hidden, something I didn't want to look at. You're overthinking this. You're letting your friends get in your head, aren't you? Grant has been filling you with all this nonsense, and now you're trying to blame me for things that aren't even real. End of 40. My friends didn't make me feel this way, he said firmly, his gaze unwavering. You did. They just gave me the push I needed to finally say something. And I'm glad they did. Because we can't keep going on like this, Lorelai. This isn't healthy. It's not fair to either of us. I crossed my arms, leaning back in my chair, trying to regain some semblance of control. Oh, so what's the solution then, huh? Counseling? Divorce? You're just going to throw in the towel because I made a few jokes you didn't like? This isn't about the jokes, he said, slamming his hand on the table, making me jump. This is about respect. It's about whether or not you even want to be with me, because right now, it feels like you don't. I scoffed. That's insane. You are blowing this so far out of proportion. And it's... No, he said, his voice steadying again, becoming chillingly calm. I'm asking for the truth, for once. Is there someone else? Or is it just that I was never the guy you really wanted? The question hung in the air between us, heavy and suffocating. My first instinct was to deny it, to lash out, to call him crazy. But something in his tone stopped me. He wasn't angry anymore. He wasn't accusing. He was just... done. Done with the games, done with the deflections. He was asking a real question, and he wanted a real answer. And I didn't have one. I couldn't answer his question. I couldn't even look him in the eye. The silence stretched for what felt like an eternity. Fix it or walk away, he had said. He was putting the choice on me. I wasn't used to him putting me on the spot like that. Normally, he'd back down. He'd let me deflect, change the subject, and eventually, Everything would smooth over and go back to normal. But not this time. He was dead serious. The weight of his ultimatum was crushing. Finally, I took a deep breath, trying to sound composed, in control. "All right," I said, my voice softer than before. "If you want to fix it, we'll try counseling." His eyebrows shot up. I could see he wasn't expecting me to agree so quickly. He thought I would fight, that I would dismiss the idea. "Really?" he asked, a hint of suspicion in his voice. "Yes, really," I said, leaning forward and clasping my hands on the table, putting on my most sincere expression. "I don't want to throw this marriage away, Arthur. If you think counseling will help, then let's do it." It wasn't a total lie. I didn't want a divorce. I liked my life. I was comfortable. Arthur was a part of that life. But the truth, the deeper truth, I figured this was all just a phase. He was feeling himself after that little pep talk from Grant and his friends, but he'd come back down to earth soon enough. This whole standing up for myself thing was temporary. All I had to do was ride it out. Agreeing to counseling was a strategic move. It would pacify him. It would make me look like the reasonable one, the one who was willing to try. Scheduling it? Actually going through with it? That was another story. "I'll find a counselor," I told him that night. "I'll look up some good ones tomorrow and set something up." He seemed relieved. The tension in his shoulders relaxed for the first time in weeks. He actually smiled at me, a real, genuine smile. For a moment, it felt like we were us again. But weeks went by, and I never made the call. Every time he brought it up, I had a ready-made excuse. "Oh, I've just been so swamped with that big project at work. I'll do it this weekend, I promise." Oh, a week later, it was. "The good ones I found are all booked up for a month." I put us on a wait list. Then it was, "I'm waiting for someone to call me back with their intake forms." He seemed to believe me, at first. He'd nod, thank me for trying, and tell me to let him know. But eventually, the questions stopped. He stopped asking about the wait list. He stopped asking if I'd heard back from anyone. He just stopped. I took his silence as a victo.